The old mirror stood in the corner, draped in a heavy, dust-laden sheet. Legend had it that the mirror was a trap, its silvered surface a portal to somewhere dark and cold. But legends have a way of resurfacing, and the truth, as they say, has a way of coming out. One crisp autumn evening, a stranger arrived in town. His name was Samuel, an antique collector with an eye for the unusual. He discovered the old house on the outskirts of town. As Samuel approached, a shiver ran down his spine. Samuel stepped inside, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The attic was shrouded in darkness, the only light filtering in through cracks in the boarded-up windows. In the far corner, partially obscured by shadows and draped with that heavy sheet, stood the mirror. Samuel approached cautiously, his footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust that covered the floorboards. What harm could an old piece of glass truly do? With a shrug, he steeled himself and pulled. The sheet resisted for a moment, clinging to the mirror as if loath to reveal its secrets. Then, with a rush of stale air, it yielded, falling away to reveal the mirror's surface. Samuel stepped back, his breath catching in his throat. He reached out a hand, his fingertips hovering just above the cool, smooth surface of the glass. As Samuel's fingers brushed against the glass, a jolt of energy surged through him. The reflection was no longer his own. Instead, he saw the face of a young woman, her features delicate and ethereal, framed by a cascade of raven hair. He would uncover the truth behind the haunted mirror, even if it cost him his sanity. The days that followed were a blur of unsettling events. Samuel, unable to shake the memory of the face in the mirror, found himself drawn back to the attic again and again. Shadows seemed to twist and writhe at the edge of his vision, vanishing when he turned to face them directly. Nightmares plagued him, vivid and disturbing. The mirror was haunted, and he, foolishly, had opened a door that could not be closed. The attic, once a place of dusty relics and forgotten memories, became Samuel's sanctuary and his prison. He found himself spending hours there, drawn to the mirror like a moth to a flame. He began to notice changes in himself, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. But the house held him captive, its presence as tangible as iron bars, its silence a suffocating blanket. One night as Samuel sat before the mirror, the reflection shifted once more. The face of the young woman, the one he had glimpsed before, materialized in the glass. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a mournful sigh that seemed to emanate from the depths of the mirror itself. Samuel knew it was madness to speak to a reflection, but he couldn't help himself. The visions faded, leaving Samuel shaken and confused. He knew he needed answers, and he knew where to find them. The library, with its dusty tomes and forgotten histories, held the key to unraveling the mystery of the haunted mirror. The truth, he was starting to realize, was far more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. The library was a haven of dusty silence, the air thick with the scent of aged paper and leather. Sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, cast the room in a mosaic of muted colors. Samuel, his footsteps echoing softly, searched for any mention of the mirror, the house, or the mysterious woman. He had spent days poring over local histories and ghost stories, searching for a clue. His quest led him to the restricted section, reserved for ancient texts and forbidden knowledge. There he found a leather-bound diary, its pages brittle with age. The librarian hesitated before handing him the key. "Be careful, young man," he rasped. "Some secrets are best left buried." Samuel unlocked the gate and carried the diary to a secluded reading table. As he opened the cover, a musty scent wafted up. The first page bore a name, Nicholas Delacroix. The diary chronicled the life of Nicolas Delacroix, a scholar of the arcane arts. Delacroix, obsessed with immortality, filled the pages with cryptic notes and chilling diagrams. The mirror, he believed, was the key. Its silvered surface was a doorway between the living and the dead. As Samuel read, a growing sense of unease settled over him. The diary was a blueprint for a terrifying ritual, designed to ensnare souls. The woman in the mirror was the first soul claimed by Delacroix's twisted ambition. Section 2. The Ritual. Delacroix's diary described a ritual of unspeakable cruelty, fueled by a lust for power. He constructed the mirror, each element imbued with dark energy. The frame channeled energy, trapping souls within the mirror's depths. The ritual, under a blood moon, required a pure soul sacrifice. Delacroix chose his wife, a woman of beauty and kindness. He lured her to the attic, prepared for the ritual. The diary entries were scrawled and frantic. Delacroix recounted the ritual in chilling detail. He succeeded in binding her soul to the mirror. The mirror became a predator, its hunger insatiable. Delacroix became its first victim, his soul bound to the mirror. Samuel closed the diary, the weight of its revelations pressing down on him. The library's air felt stifling, filled with unspoken horrors. The mirror was a prison for lost souls, a testament to Delacroix's madness. Section 3. The Mirror's Hunger. Samuel thought of the woman in the mirror, her face etched with sadness. She was not alone. How many others had fallen victim to the mirror's allure, their souls ensnared? He pictured them trapped, their faces contorted in eternal agony. A cold dread settled over Samuel as he realized the danger. The mirror's hunger had been growing, drawing him in. It had shown him glimpses of its power, feeding on his curiosity. He had become the mirror's plaything, and like those before him, he was in grave danger. The diary had warned of the mirror's seductive power. Delacroix had scribbled a desperate warning. The mirror feeds on fear. It reflects our deepest desires, twisting them until we are empty shells. Samuel knew he had to act quickly. The mirror had to be stopped. He had to find a way to break its hold and free the trapped souls. But how could he defeat something so ancient and powerful? Section 4. Trapped. The weight of the task ahead of him threatened to crush him. He was a man of simple curiosities, a collector of forgotten relics, not a warrior, not a sorcerer. Yet, fate, it seemed, had other plans. He had stumbled upon a secret that had remained hidden for over a century. A darkness that threatened to consume not only him, but countless others. As he stepped out of the library and into the fading light of the approaching evening, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The shadows seemed to lengthen, stretching towards him like grasping claws. The air, heavy with the promise of rain, carried the faint scent of decay, a chilling reminder of the house on the hill, the mirror waiting patiently within its darkened attic. He had a choice to make. Run, disappear into the anonymity of the crowd and try to forget the horrors he had uncovered, or confront the darkness head-on, armed with nothing but his wits and the knowledge gleaned from a dead man's diary. The rational part of him screamed at him to flee, to put as much distance between himself and the mirror as possible. But another part of him, a part he hadn't known existed, a part awakened by the diary's revelations and fueled by a growing sense of responsibility for the souls trapped within the mirror's depths, urged him forward. He would not abandon them to their fate. He would find a way to break the mirror's hold, to undo the sorcerer's dark legacy, even if it cost him everything. The old house loomed before him, a silhouette against the storm-ridden sky. Rain lashed down, mirroring the turmoil in Samuel's heart. He clutched the diary, its leather cold and damp against his clammy skin. Each step towards the house felt like a step towards his own demise, yet he pressed on, fear a bitter taste on his tongue. As he entered the house, the familiar scent of decay washed over him, thick and suffocating. The house seemed to groan under the onslaught of the storm, its timbers creaking like the bones of a dying beast. He made his way through the darkened rooms, each one filled with a palpable sense of dread, as if the very walls themselves were watching his every move. The attic door, no longer a barrier, stood ajar, beckoning him inside. He could feel the mirror's pull now, a tangible force drawing him towards his fate. He steeled himself, taking a deep breath of the musty air, and stepped inside. The attic, lit only by the intermittent flashes of lightning, was a scene of utter chaos. Furniture was overturned, books and papers scattered across the floor as if a struggle had taken place. The mirror, its surface reflecting the storm's fury, dominated the room, its presence more menacing than ever before. As Samuel approached, he heard a faint humming sound emanating from the mirror, a low, resonant vibration that seemed to shake the very foundation of the house. The diary lay open on the floor, its pages rustling in the drafts that snaked through the broken windows. Samuel bent down and picked it up, his eyes scanning the faded ink. Delacroix outlined a way to break the curse, a dangerous gamble with the slimmest chance of success. The mirror drew its power from trapped souls, their life force fueling its darkness. To destroy the mirror, Samuel would need to release them, but releasing them would come at a terrible price. The diary spoke of a counter-ritual, a way to sever the link between the souls and the mirror, but it required a sacrifice. The inscription detailing the sacrifice was smudged, almost illegible. But one word stood out, stark and chilling in its finality: innocent. Samuel stared at the word, his blood turning to ice in his veins. He had come to save the souls trapped within the mirror, but was he willing to condemn another to achieve that goal? He thought of the woman, her face etched with suffering, and the countless others imprisoned within the mirror's depths. Could he in good conscience turn away, knowing their torment would continue? The storm raged outside, mirroring the tempest in his soul. Lightning flashed, illuminating the mirror's surface, and for a fleeting moment, Samuel saw his reflection, not as he was, but as he could be. A man consumed by darkness, his eyes burning with the same cold fire that danced in the mirror's depths. He knew what he had to do. With trembling hands, Samuel retrieved a shard of glass from the shattered remnants of a picture frame lying on the floor. The inscription in the diary had mentioned using a piece of the mirror itself, a twisted irony that did not escape him. The shard felt cold in his hand, radiating an unnatural chill that seemed to seep into his bones. As the storm reached its crescendo, Samuel began the counter-ritual. He spoke the words Delacroix had written, his voice barely audible above the wind's howling, each syllable heavy with dread and a strange sense of inevitability. He drew the shard across his palm, ignoring the sharp sting of pain as his blood dripped onto the open page of the diary. The air in the attic crackled with energy, charged with the power of the approaching storm and the dark magic that permeated the very fabric of the house. The mirror, sensing a disruption in its power, hummed louder, its surface swirling with shadows, the trapped faces contorting in a silent symphony of rage and despair. Samuel pressed his bleeding hand against the mirror's surface, his blood smearing across the cold glass. A blinding light erupted from the point of contact, engulfing the attic in a searing white flash. Samuel cried out, shielding his eyes, his body buffeted by a force that seemed to tear at his very being. And then, silence. The storm had passed, leaving behind an eerie calm. Samuel lay on the floor of the attic, his body aching, his mind numb. All that remained was a pile of shattered glass and splintered wood. As Samuel made his way downstairs, he thought he heard whispers, faint and mournful. Samuel left the house as the first rays of dawn broke through the storm clouds. He carried the scars of that night, both physical and emotional, and sometimes, in the dead of night, he would hear those whispers again.